Hello, this is I Do Damage, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're talking about, that's right, Last Epoch. And this is the build that I've been referring to as the Jade Doctor 2.0, which is kind of a throwback to Diablo 3 Witch Doctor. This build is a Reaper form, is probably what a Reaper build, something like that is probably what you've heard on the streets of Last Epoch. Anyway, we're going to focus on Reaper Form and Transplant. These two skills finally have a full skill tree, so I can make a build using them. And this build is definitely fun. It can be kind of hard to play, but I think it's fun nonetheless. In this video, I want to go through and I want to show you each skill. I'm not going to go super into depth and talk about each node. Like, I could do that, but that would take hours. So we're just going to keep this short and sweet. I'll show you the skill and the nodes I chose to take, and maybe an alternative choice for you on some of the skills. And then at the very end, I'll show off some gameplay and the rotation and play style of this. So I'm going to introduce you to the skills that we're going to use in this build in the order that you're going to want to take them and level them up in the leveling process. So the first skill that you're going to want to specialize into is Harvest. And this is a zero cost skill, so it could be, and it is used as a filler. And while you're leveling up, you're going to want to use it quite frequently. But the main part of this skill is for a little bit more survivability. And this big node right here called Wraith Skin. And what this does is this gives you quite a bit of ward, but it does consume all your mana, which mana isn't a real issue with this build. So it's a really nice node to take. So you're going to want to obviously take these nodes to get there. And you can pause and copy the build if you want as we go, but I'm just going to go through and point out the most important nodes to know about. You also want to take the life leech here, and you'll figure out why a little bit later on when we get to the Reaper form. And we want to convert necrotic damage. We want everything to be necrotic damage. And we'll have a little bit of poison in there as well, but necrotic is our main element that we want to focus on. So this bottom left area, there's really two paths here. There's a raw damage path or a critical hit chance path. So it's kind of personal preference. I have chosen to go raw damage. So every enemy that is marked takes 91% more damage with Harvest. So you can do that path, or if you prefer the critical strike chance, you could go down here off of Harrowing Blade. You could go Great Scythe, which will actually increase your AoE as well, so that's in there too. And we're going to go 3 points into here, so you'd get 60%. And then you would only want to do 2 points into Spectral Whetstone, so that you can do the last 3 points to get the full 10% crit chance, so that would stack up to 30%. So those are your two options there with Harvest. And the next skill that we'll specialize into is called Mark for Death. This skill is a circle AoE, and every enemy in there gets marked for death and makes them take more damage, okay? So with the talent tree here, we want to make them take even more damage and increase the area. So the first node you're going to want to go to is this one right here, Desecration. They take 25% more damage when it's fully leveled, so 5% per tick. It does increase the mana cost, but mana isn't a real issue with this build here, so get that node, and then you're going to want to come over here to the bigger area of effect, and then you could go a full 5 for Poison Shred. I went down here for mana efficiency and curse duration, but I would just go a full 5 out of 5 on the Poison Protection Shred. I think you get more benefit from it. The next skill, and this one's going to be where the majority of our damage is going to come from, is Transplant. This is a crazy skill and probably one of my favorites so far. The way that this skill works is by default, you jump to a new area and you leave behind a corpse that explodes. But when you specialize into it, you can make it so there's 8 corpses. You can have 4 from where you left and 4 from where you land. And if you teleport a really short distance, you're going to have a total of 8 corpses in a really small area, exploding and doing a ton of damage. So the way we pull that off here is we go the first node here, increased area of effect. You want 4 out of 4 nodes here. And then you want all the extra corpse nodes. Once you get all those, you want to come over here and you want to turn all the damage into necrotic. We already talked about that before. You know why. And then the last 7 points, you can kind of do whatever with. I went Bone Armor because you take less damage for 4 seconds with this, and then you increase the effectiveness on that. And then the very last point is reduce health cost. It's just pure for survival. So that's Transplant. Next is Aura of Decay. This one is an aura that goes around you. It's a poison aura. And it does deal damage to you, so you want to kind of remember to toggle it off if you're going AFK or whatever. But the reason we have this one in here is because it also gives you life regen. But the way it works is kind of weird. So here's the node. So when you have 4 out of 4 points invested, you gain 160% increased health regen if you have deactivated the aura recently. And recently refers to the last 4 seconds. So that means you want to have this up like 98% of the time you want to have the aura on, but every 4 seconds you want to remember to toggle it off and then back on, just to keep that regen going. So that's the big node there. I also went increased area of effect. As you can kind of see a trend here, I really prefer that stat on my skills. We got a Poison Nova, one that drops bombs, slow. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. So you have a passive mark for death. When you're hit, you have a chance to mark them for death. So it's just a passive thing. It's really nice to have. So pretty much your big ones here are your mark for death and the healing. The other ones you can kind of do whatever with. And last but not least, the skill that makes the build work is the Reaper form, right? It is a Reaper build. So this skill is pretty interesting. You go in, you hit your button to enter Reaper form, you get a new skill called Reap, which is like it's a melee dash and it leeches health as well. And when you enter the new form, you get a new HP bar. I'll refer to it as Reaper HP. But what makes this interesting is the longer you're in Reaper form, the faster and faster your Reaper HP decreases. Now when you die in Reaper form, you just go back into human form. It heals you to full, but you're in Reaper form, and you have a 20-second cooldown on the Reaper ability. So after 20 seconds of not dying in human form, you can re-enter Reaper form and keep going. That's the point of the build, right? But with the skill tree in mind, we want to make the form last longer and deal more damage, and the way I found to pull that off was take this node here. Your health decays slower in Reaper form. Get more attack speed. Increased area of effect. If you can't tell by now, area of effect is a big thing that I like in these types of games. Obviously, more necrotic damage. Critical strike multiplier, which is critical strike damage. And this last node took me a while, and I really had to think if I thought it was worth it or not, because you do have reduced healing in Reaper form, but you do more damage. So the way I countered that was, in the passive tree that I'll show you next, I took a lot of life leech. And we also have that healing regen on our poison aura, if you can remember that. So that's pretty much it for all of the active skill trees. Next, I want to talk about the passive tree. It's going to be pretty short. I'm just going to go through and show you the nodes I took and just kind of comment on why. So when you first start at level 1, you're going to be a level 1 Acolyte, and you have to level up to 20 before you can actually specialize into Lich. So there's 3 nodes here that are pretty basic. Most of the nodes focus on minions, and we're not going to use minions a whole bunch. But the way it works is the first one you're going to want to take is you and your minions. So you're doing more damage. After that, you want to come over here and get some intelligence, because a lot of your skills are going to scale off of intelligence for their damage. And last but not least, you have poison protection, and also a chance to poison enemies around the enemy you killed. But once you've done that, you can finally specialize into Lich, and you start out at the bottom down here, obviously. And these are the nodes I took. You deal more damage. You always want more damage, and it's tripled when you're under 35% health. And then here we have our life leech that I was talking about. Necrotic damage, that's a huge one. We're always looking for necrotic damage on our gear that we get. And then you can skip up, you can skip a few tiers and go up here to ward retention. So if you can remember back to harvest, that node that gives us ward, we can hold on to that ward longer. And we get more mana, so we get more ward from that as well. Next, we'll take physical, necrotic, and poison penetration. And then this whole tree right here is crits. We have crit chance, attack speed, and critical strike multiplier. And then the last two nodes here are your life leech ones. There's attack speed on here as well. And this one also, Soul Maw. So these two. I'm only level 60 right now, so I'm still going to have 40 more points to spend. But this will be a good basis to get your build going. And so you can really start farming for your items and legendaries. But next we're going to go ahead and show some gameplay footage. Before we go ahead and take this build that we've just constructed into combat, I just want to show you in town our rotation. It's pretty basic, but you want to have this aura up as much as possible. You just want to remember to every 4 seconds turn it off and then back on, so you get the 4 seconds without life regen. But the way it works is obviously you want to be in Reaper form. You're going to mark for death, go ahead and transplant, turn around and reap, and then right click for harvest to get your ward back up. And you're just going to want to repeat that. You can use your harvest as your filler to get damage out. Make sure you keep up your mark and deactivating your shield, and that's pretty much going to be your rotation. Alright, I'll do about 30 seconds or so here, me commentating on the gameplay while I'm doing it live. So we want to keep our aura up. These mobs are pretty hard, so we're just going to push past them. I want to show you on a really small group of mobs, or a big group of mobs with small HP, but yeah, this will work. So we'll mark for death, transplant. See, they're already dead. That's usually how you're going to see this working in this build, is you're going to mark for death, transplant, and they're all dead. Just in one shot like this right here. Boom. It's pretty fun. I find myself actually laughing out loud playing this build. So I'll go ahead and play about 5 minutes of just gameplay without commentary so you guys can see with your own eyes what you think of this build. Let me know down in the comments what you really think. What do you think about this video? Was it helpful? Are you going to try this build out? Let me know if there's any tweaks that I could do to make this build even stronger. Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe to the video if you haven't yet. And talking about letting me know what you think, join the Discord and come talk to me on there. We chat pretty much all day long about games and builds and ideas. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch as well, so you know when I go live and you can catch some more epic gameplay. And come chat with me too. As always, I want to thank everyone for watching this video, and thank you for your time, and we'll see y'all next time.